So this is a voice note sending to my friend Katyanna to describe my new optimism thing. It's like about the introversion and extroversion, optimism, and how they all wrap up together. Come around on the optimism thing. I think that I'm actually describing two things with the optimism. Really, what that is the success mindset is the linear and exponential paths. And then the optimism is just a natural byproduct of understanding the success mindset. And that success mindset sort of permeates into every arena of life. It also applies in social situations. And this is essentially what it is. So the thing I was telling you the other day about the people with the intimacy curve and how people want to climb it or start at the end and come backwards. Actually, I think now that I've thought about it for a while and had more realizations about it, I think really what I'm describing there is introversion versus extroversion. So what I was talking about when I was talking with you about it, the intimacy curve, is sort of introversion, extroversion as it applies to romance. And I think it also applies to other areas of life besides romance. But so, for example, essentially introversion and extroversion are these two separate paths in the success mindset, or at least they are the expression of those two paths in the social arena. The linear path is introversion. It's where you are seeking safety. And so usually what happens is, I think I've told you my theory about introversion before, but it's identity loss anxiety. You are worried about losing your identity in the stimulus of life. So you're trying to control your mindset or control and process all of your stimulus as it's happening in order to prevent your identity from getting away from you. And this is a safety seeking behavior. And that's what is so problematic about it, is that safety doesn't exist. It's a very similar into linear path. You end up spending most of your time in order to keep the things that you supposedly think you can keep, but you can't actually keep them. And it's just a way less efficient way of living. And it represents an ecosystem because there's a lot of downstream effects that are ways that people commonly think and don't realize that this is just, they're believing in a foundation that isn't real. So for example, introverts are trying to control their stimulus, which means they are trying to interact. Usually they only want social interactions where they have high degrees of control. So that's usually interactions one-on-one or interactions with small groups. And there's a really easily arrived at fallacy when you're doing that all the time, is that you don't want short-term interactions because they're not long-term interactions, right? You arrive at this fallacy where you believe that long-term relationships matter more and are more valuable because they represent safety. Investment represents safety, and time invested is, like, I think, the biggest way to invest, right? So they get into this mindset where they are investing all their time and also expecting people to invest time back, right? But the problem is that stasis doesn't exist. Everything's in constant motion, and that includes your community. And so when I said safety doesn't exist in the linear path, I think I would say the same thing about community. I don't think that community exists, at least not as a fixed thing in your life that you can expect to persist. Community is in constant motion, and so anytime you have community, it is not something that you could have naturally produced. It's only can be by accident, and you can't really control that happening into the future. So introverts get into this situation where they're investing lots of time and people around them trying to maintain the community, which is a fiction. You can't really maintain or keep a community. And this also persists into, I was telling you about the ways that people do this in romance, which is like they won't show their real self. They're afraid of intimacy. They're afraid of falling in love. And it's all because they are trying to prevent their identity from getting away from them in the stimulus, which falling in love is, I think, probably one of the biggest stimulus in life. Or at least it's a powerful thing. And they're scared of it. They don't want it to happen to them too fast, because then they can't control it. So they are constantly putting on the brakes, constantly wanting everything to go slower in tiny little bite-sized pieces so they can have control. And in so doing, they get the commitment that they want up front, but usually they also sacrifice the visibility to know if the thing they're committing to is actually good. And this is a common pattern in non-romantic relationships as well. You're investing your time into the same people over and over, and that necessarily prevents you from being able to see if those people are even worth investing your time in, because you can't see other people because you're not spending time or interacting with other people. So it's like, really what I've arrived at is just the value of long-term relationships is not there. At least your relationships should not be valuable because they last for a long time. They should be valuable because they're really good. And a good relationship can last anywhere from 2 minutes up to 50 years, or however arbitrarily long a good relationship is not bound by time. And so when you are extroverted, when you're going the opposite route, you are trying to have good relationships, and you can have a good relationship for a very short amount of time. And the difference is that obviously, again, there is no illusion of safety when you're only trying to have a good relationship, not a long relationship. It's not to say that your good relationships won't last a long time, and I hope that they do, because we all need more good things in our life. But the thing that makes it good is not the time. And so this is exactly what that is. I know a lot of people, as introverts, who are like, I don't like going to parties, or at least not parties with lots of people, not big, high stimulus environments. And sometimes they do that, but it's in short, small amounts, and then usually they need a long recovery afterwards because they're burning through tons of energy in order to be there, because the way they're approaching the situation is the opposite of sustainable. And so it's just like, it's the wrong mindset. Safety doesn't exist. Community is not something you can control, and therefore it only can exist by accident, or only can exist for short amounts of time. And really, like, the best things that happen in life also give you visibility about the best things that happen in life. So the more good relationships you have, you'll find that, sure, a lot of them don't last a very long time if you're only focused on having good relationships, but they also give you visibility about what is good. And they allow you to compare and contrast and be like, oh, this is good, and also this is good. And they allow you to evolve and become better at getting good relationships. This is why I was saying that it's a total fallacy that hookups are not rewarding. That's totally not true. It's just like, if you're approaching hookups from this sort of protectionist, long-termist, introverted point of view, then of course they're not going to be rewarding, because you're not getting any of the things that you want, which are security and long-term stuff, commitment. But if you approach from the opposite direction, where all you want is a good relationship, however short, a good interaction, then a hookup can be very rewarding. And not just rewarding, it's also fuel for your evolution. It's fuel for your ability to be able to see what is good and what also is a good relationship. And it gives you more comparison material to train your mental model about how to live. And again, the only difference is that there is no illusion of safety. And it's really weird, because I spent a lot of time talking about the negatives on the introverted, long-termist, loss minimizing side of things. And I don't really spend a lot of time talking about the positives on the other side. And that's because it's kind of really difficult to picture the positives, because when you start to embrace the gain maximizing, extroverted, good relationship oriented way of approaching things, it doesn't stay the same, because literally what it means to do that is to exclude yourself with all of the stuff that you need to compare and contrast and grow. So it's hard to describe, because the only way I could describe it is to say it's an upward curve. You're going to become better at whatever you're doing, and you're going to do it really fast, and you're going to transcend your circumstances. And there's a million ways that you could do that. It's actually weird how it's really easy to talk about this stuff in terms of money and business, because money is a measurable thing. And it's really easy to talk about exponential growth in money, but it's really hard to talk about exponential growth in your social skill and social situations, and your ability to leverage the resources in the people around you. That's not something that's as easy to measure. I think maybe if I worked on it long enough, I could find some measures, but I think I'll do that. But it's an opposite kind of thing. It's more of a gray area thing. And I think it's also like, the more I learn about people who are really successful monetarily, the more I realize they all sort of have an understanding of these things. And also their real skill is not with math or something like that. It's almost always with people. They're drawing out the resources and the people around them. They're reading the people around them. They are correctly perceiving the people around them. They are not doing this long-termist safety pursuant stuff where they're trying to be safe. And that's what makes them successful, is their understanding of these social dynamics, not necessarily their ability to, analyze charts and spreadsheets. Although I think that's also a useful skill. It's just not the useful skill that produces long-term exponential growth. And so it's weird, because I think if I was trying to become a billionaire, my project would not change very much. Sure, I would be putting more effort into trying to get money, but if you're trying to exponentially grow your money, then you have to do it through people. People are the route to any kind of growth, because all your growth comes from interacting with people. And so it's kind of all the same thing. It's all the same shit. Success in life comes from your ability to perceive and understand, manipulate, and also express and control the perception of yourself to other people. And it's just it's all perception stuff. And this is I think it's all the same thing. It's all incredibly interrelated. But anyways, talked for a long time. I'm gonna turn this into a YouTube video, I think. Well, hope you liked it though.